It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you all, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of the agenda. I think we're all going to learn loads of stuff. So my job is to kick us off with my personal favorite topic at the moment, which is AI. Yesterday, BioStrata Limited was acquired by Supreme Group. So actually, my job title's changed as of about 24 hours ago. And I'm now VP of Marketing at Supreme Group. But more importantly, I think for today's session is I'm an AI nerd. And me and my friend Mime, that you can see here, weekly we go through all the news, looking at all the technologies about how AI is going to impact our lives as marketing professionals so that we do all the reading so that you don't have to. And today I'm looking forward to sharing some of the things that we've been thinking about on the podcast with you all. And I really welcome and want to hear your experiences with AI as well as we go. So there's a couple of key topics that I'm going to go through today. But before we get started, I just want to get a feel for our experience with AI so far in the room. So if you've used an AI tool like ChatGPT, I just want you to pop your hand up for me. Okay. When I started doing these about 2 years ago, there'd be 2 people. And now it's everyone, and that's good. Now put your hand up for me if you've used a paid version of those tools, some more powerful ones. Oh, quite a few less, some people. Okay, that's good. What about AI for image generation, Mid-Journey, ClipDrop? Okay, we usually get rid of everyone at that point, so I'm really glad to see some hands up. What about AI for video? Anybody? Still some hands. This is really, really good. And AI for speech or music? Okay, cool. So we're going to look through all of these different things today and try and look at where AI is going, because I do think most of us have had a play with ChatGPT now. We know some of its capabilities and its weaknesses, but this technology of generative AI is moving really, really quickly. So we're going to go through 3 different things. We're going to look at the state of AI right now. How good is it? What can we do with it? And how is it going to save us time? We're going to look at what happens when we move into these new modalities like image, video, etc. And then we're going to look at how you can win in the content marketing field in the age of AI, because what's old is new, but definitely there are some things I think that we need to focus on. So let's quickly look then at where we are. So there's some interesting studies that have come out over the last sort of 12 months or so, just trying to benchmark productivity gains from AI. First one that was really interesting was actually late last year, looking at some experiments run within Boston Consulting Group. And what they basically did, set up 2 groups of consultants on a fictional project, and they gave one group ChatGPT and the other group had to go old school. And what they found was, for those that used AI, the quality of their work was improved, and also the speed of their output. And when they dug a bit deeper, what they actually found was that ChatGPT was leveling the playing field. So for people who were like early career professionals or perhaps lower skill in some areas, what they found was it was actually boosting those people up. And if you're actually a domain expert, and maybe some of you, I know there's a lot of domain experts here, have experienced this. If you're already a domain expert, in some cases, ChatGPT and other tools can be detrimental because they're not maybe at your level from a technical perspective. Then there was another interesting study looking at productivity gains. Again, this was mostly content creation and just looking at how much faster people could perform if they had access to ChatGPT and other generative AI tools. And as you can see from these graphs on the left-hand side, basically people who had the tool could work faster and that the quality of their work improved. But perhaps more interestingly is how the work changed. And you might be finding this in your own experience with some of these tools, which is the time that they spent drafting and brainstorming was flipped and they spent more time editing. And it gets you over that blank page problem, right? You're like, oh, God, where to start? So ChatGPT gives you something, so you're like, okay, well, that bit's good, but that bit sucks. And then you start editing and it actually gets you going. It could be really helpful. And actually what they found was that people even got greater job satisfaction when they were able to work like this. So AI still hallucinates. It has a number of issues that we won't have time to go into today. So it has weaknesses, but it is having real world practical impacts. And if I think about my own work, I'm about 20 to 30% more productive with AI. And these tools are getting smarter all the time. I won't labor this graph too much, but basically what this shows is AI tools being able to surpass humans on a lot of benchmark tests. And the most recent study we have is this one from Denmark that was released recently, looked at I think it's 100,000 workers in Denmark to look at how they were using AI. And the people who they surveyed estimated that they could halve working times for a third of their tasks, which means you have to do some maths in your head. But basically, it's going to have a pretty big impact. And when you zoom in on the graph, right at the top, marketing and journalism, right? Because we create a lot of content, and this is what these tools are really good at so far. Last bit of data then is the Artificial Intelligence Institute for Marketing produces a report every year. This one just came out, and they survey people, marketers, on their use of AI. And as you can see, the biggest things here are reducing time on repetitive data-driven tasks and getting more actionable insights from marketing data. But it's worth digging out that report because it's got quite a lot of interesting stuff in it, especially this one of my favorite ones. And you've got to remember, people who subscribe to this institute are probably playing with AI quite a lot, so it's probably not the fairest, most representative sample. But there are 15% of people who just couldn't live with AI. And I'm one of them. I was working on the plane on the way over, and the internet sucked, and I was like, oh, I can't write this myself. Where's my first draft machine? So I watched the movie instead. But, there's a lot of people now starting to infuse these into their daily workflows as well. So I definitely see more adoption coming. But if you haven't adopted it yet, don't let this graph fool you. These are the early adopters. So that's kind of where we are. We can save time. We can be more productive. We can brainstorm with the tools. But I want to go beyond that, because we've all played with ChatGPT now, and it's a bit passé. What people are doing with this technology is starting to get kind of crazy. So when I'm talking about AI today, I'm mostly talking about generative AI. So the ability to produce things like text, audio, video, etc. And we're going to look at some of these today, but not all of them. And we're not going to look at text because I think most of us have played with that, but let's look at image, because image is interesting. So the image tools are now good enough to produce photorealistic images of pretty much anything that you can imagine. And the only reason they don't produce images of real people is because they've been fine-tuned not to, except for Elon Musk's new model that he released this week. And you've probably seen some images circulating of famous people who I won't name in situations that they would never find themselves in, and they look photorealistic. But what you can see is with a simple text prompt, this was Darth Vader using a microscope. That's literally all I said. And I get this. On the right-hand side, you can hopefully just about make out the word BioStrata there in the shadows of the rocks. So you can actually lay masks on top of these image generation algorithms and get quite interesting effects. Obviously, these people are all outside currently having a drink, but these are everybody at Marketing on the Edge, where we all are today. And ultimately, one of the big issues with these tools at the beginning was they're bad at faces, they're bad at hands, and they were terrible at text. But we can see now is they're actually able to render text. And I actually prefer the Marketing on the Edge t-shirts that you've all got, the people who are helping us today. But I think the AI did a reasonable job of trying to come up with something there. So it goes beyond image generation to include tools like ClickDrop. So ClickDrop's one of my favorites. You can generate images, you can uncrop images, which basically means the AI imagines what the outside of the image looks like. You can remix your images, you can remove things from images, you can remove backgrounds, you could create doodles and drive images from there. And why this is cool is that there's quite a lot of manipulation of images that you can do even if you're not a graphic design professional. And I use this every day. My classic is I'm creating a presentation, I need like a client's logo, it's on a white background and I wish it was on a transparent background, and I just throw it in there and it comes back and the background's been removed because these tools are way better than they used to be. Canva, a lot of people use Canva, has lots of similar AI tools built in. And if you're not playing with these, it's worth having a go because you probably will find ways to save time in your own workflow. And my workflow is not going to be the same as your workflow, so you do have to explore this a bit for yourselves. Of course, Avery is not going to be left behind on this. They're baking all of this AI into Photoshop and InDesign with lots of really interesting things like smart remove and smart replace. And so our ability to manipulate images very quickly and without having to use a designer necessarily for certain tasks is definitely increasing. So you can see here like smart remove people from backgrounds. And you'll even see this cropping up on your phones. Perhaps some of you have like a Google Pixel, and a lot of this stuff is now becoming mainstream in a way that it will just fold its way into our lives, I think. And these tools, because they're getting so good so quickly, they can now produce images in real time. And what that allows you to do is to shape the outputs in very interesting ways. This is a tool called Crea, and what you can see is with a text prompt and then like mapping out a rough approximation of what your image that you want it to look like, you can actually drive image generation in real time where you can put the things where you want them to be, which again has been a major weakness of AI image generation tools so far. But now we have much more control over that as well. So image, if you're not using it, I think over the next 6 months, you're going to see lots more of this, and it's worth getting to grips and playing with some of these tools already. But video is where I think it's really going to happen. So video generation has really improved. One of these videos is AI generated. So put your hand up if you think it's the top left. If you think it's top left, hands up. Top right? Okay. Bottom left? Okay. Bottom right? Alrighty. So if you said top left, then you're right. But if you said top right, you're also right. And if you said bottom left or bottom right, you're also all right. Because we're all winners here. So yeah, those were all generated by an OpenAI's tool Sora, which is in safety testing at the moment and hasn't been released yet. But those were simple text prompts, Hollywood-level production capabilities. And ultimately, what this is going to mean is small and mid-sized businesses are going to be able to access video content creation at a price point and without accessing teams of production experts in a way that they didn't need to for certain types of content. And so, as marketers, what creative ideas does this open up for us that before we would have gone too hard, too expensive, too long to produce? Could be an interesting time. One of the tools that is available is called Runway, and this is me just animating the image that I generated earlier. I just gave it the image and said, make a video. That was it. And what you will notice, and what I really like about this video, is watch the person who comes in on the right. How does it know that that is a person in front and it needs to go behind and in the gap? And so a lot of people think that these AI video tools are developing some sort of sense of the physical world and how things interact as like an emergent property of being trained on like billions of hours of video. Very interesting. So again, what can we start to do with this? And expect to see things like, for those of you that are in instruments, expect to be able to start generating videos of your instruments just from a static of your instrument, right? Just one single picture, and now you're generating videos for your website, put on social, etc. And these tools are really creative. So Ethan Monarch, who you should all follow on LinkedIn because he shares loads of great content on this stuff, and I've borrowed heavily from Ethan. Thank you, Ethan. Produced this of a fox surfing. Not many telltale signs that that's AI, I don't think, so quite impressive. You'll notice a lot of the videos are quite short because it's very compute heavy. So at the moment, you're not going to get 2 minutes of video because it would take ages to render and probably cost a fortune. But the costs are coming down all the time. There are now other capabilities of videos. What I'm about to show you is a video from our podcast. It's just a Zoom recording that I just threw into a tool called Hey Gen. So this is the original.
If synthetic, you talk about blurring those synthetic people created in Unreal Engine, which is a gaming engine, traditionally a gaming engine, getting powerful enough to potentially be used in movies. But if you can create synthetic people.
And now, within 2 minutes.
En mi opinión, considero que es un poco una tangente, pero realmente pone a varios profesionales creativos en una situación comprometida y desafiante. Si hablamos de sintéticos, esas personas sintéticas crearon un motor irreal, un motor de juegos lo suficientemente potente como para ser utilizado en película.
So it turns out I'm really good at Spanish and I just didn't know it. But what's really important about that video is I recorded it 6 months ago, or I produced it 6 months ago, and the lip sync's pretty good. Now it's getting hard to tell the difference. So how could you scale your video content on demand for people in different locations in their language? How long before that's baked into Zoom and you speak English or whatever your first language is and someone else speaks their first language, but you hear the language you know in their voice? A year? 2 years? It's going to fundamentally change how we work. I left a little bit in here on code. Now, who here can code? We have a coder. I can't code, but AIs can code. And so then you can do some cool stuff. And if you're a coder, then you can speed some of your time up and spend some of your time criticizing the rubbish code that the AI produced for you. But in terms of just like getting some interesting things done, it opens up a whole new avenue of possibilities. So in this example, Ethan, who I mentioned earlier, asked a tool called Claude, which is like ChatGPT, for 20 ideas for an interactive tool for finance professionals. He then chose his favorite one of the 20 and asked Claude to code it for him, which it then did. And then it rendered it in an engine so he could see what it would look like if he embedded it on his website. So you see all of this appearing now, interactive tool. This is all real time. Then he wanted something changed. We had another prompt. He's like, oh, can you change this? Can you do this? Claude's extremely helpful, so it doesn't complain. It says, yeah, no worries. Starts making changes, outputs yet more code, and updates the tool that makes it even better. So, and we're going to talk about interactive tools later, but things that usually would have gone on the too hard, cost too much, don't have to do it pile, can now be done quickly and easily. Potentially allows you to serve segments of your audience with interesting dynamic tools that you just wouldn't have bothered before because the market wasn't big enough. But if you can produce it in an hour, that's a different gag. So that's another really interesting capability. So is speech, which is getting really, really good. So this is a tool called 11 Labs, which will clone your voice if you want it to, but they also have a whole host of other voices. Just before I show this video, has anybody seen ChatGPT's new voice mode? Put your hands up for me. Oh, wait, I'm going to let this speak for itself then.
give me a quote from Little Gidding.
Sure. Here's a quote from T.S. Eliot's Little Gidding. We shall not cease from exploration.
Okay, great. Can you do it in stentorian tones?
Absolutely. We shall not cease from exploration.
Excellent.
And the end
now
of
do it like you're kind of laughing at a joke the whole time.
Okay, here goes. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring.
Now do it in chthonic tones.
All right, delving deep for this one. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our
Great.
exploring.
Now do it like you're a stand-up
like...
comic trying to get people to laugh.
All right, picture this. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will probably be to find out we've been looking for our glasses while they've been on our heads the whole time.
Great. Now do the quote, except you are surrounded by animated cheese, and the cheese keeps getting closer, and it's making you increasingly nervous, but you're also not sure why the cheese is animated.
We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring is this cheese moving closer? Why?
If you like Star Trek, like I do, because I'm a nerd, how far are we from speaking to computers rather than writing? How far from just collaborating with them? Because what the magic here is real-time response, because as humans, we're very impatient, and we do not want to wait 3 seconds for our conversation partner to speak back to us, but also emotional nuance. And Jesse and I were talking about this yesterday. When they were safety testing this, one of the things in their safety testing paper was the models are chatty, fun, and maybe even slightly flirty. And it's promoting emotional responses in humans because as much as we know it's a robot, our brains are struggling to tell the difference. What does this mean for society? I don't know. But for marketers, if I've got like an ever-present assistant who answers my questions, do I use Google search anymore? And if I'm a content marketer, what does that mean for me? Last thing is music, which has emerged very powerfully over the last 6 months, and examples, again, are probably the best way to demonstrate this. The prompt here was a song about life science marketing in style X.
When I step up in the lab, put my swag in a flash. Life science on my radar, yeah, I'm up for the task. Marketing my game, I'm aiming high, never last. Giving all I've got, breaking molds, flashing glass. Got the metrics, got the data, see the strategy build. In this jungle of the hustle, see my targets on thrill. It's the science of the hustle, we make it bubble. Pushing your limit, marketing muscle. Catch me on the rise, there ain't no struggle. Life science slow, ready to go.
And then the next one.
Wake up early, she's got headlines to write. Bio breakthroughs to her rodeo tonight. With a smile and pitch, she'll turn heads like dynamite. Selling dreams and lab coats by the morning light. She ain't just selling, she's building sparks, igniting minds. In the heart of Science Valley, she's the first you won't find. Life science marketer, master of the trade. Her words are medicine, and her deals never fade.
So the biggest problem with that is I was practicing this morning because I was up with jet lag at 3 a.m. So I thought I'll do a little practice. And then I went and had a shower and I was like, science marketer, she's doing it. And I was like, oh my gosh, what? AI knows how to create earworms and it just earwormed me. So it's quite incredible that with one sentence we can create that. So I think this is mostly for fun at the moment. But again, how does that open up new creative opportunities? Like one of the most powerful things you can do as a marketer is be creative and do things people don't expect. And if you get it right, you'll go viral on social and what have you. So again, what do these tools enable for us? So before we move into the next section, I think the key thing to reflect on this, and it's kind of a bit boring and passé to keep saying it, but these are the worst that these tools will ever be. When we're all here next year looking at how far this has come, we'll laugh at how rubbish some of those examples were and how we can do X, Y, Z. We're going to have the next level of text-based models, GPT-5, etc. We're going to have that synthetic audio and video really come into the fore. People are going to change how they search for stuff. We're going to look at that in a moment. And the battle for audience attention, and trust intensifies more. And so as we move into this final section, keeping all of that in mind, what does this mean for us as marketers, especially content marketers? How do we need to reflect on this? How do we need to change? And one of the big things that's already happening is people using ChatGPT to create content at scale that's reasonably well written, might have some useful insights, but it's basically regurgitating what it finds on the web. But that hasn't stopped enterprising young folks figuring out how to automatically create a load of content and then killing it at SEO, including an example where one person was quite happy to basically say on Twitter, we stole our competitors' traffic by analyzing their keywords, and then basically creating an automatic process to write blogs about all their keywords, automatically publish them to the web, and then basically get a load of visits. And the reality is, Google and others are finding it hard to tell the difference between human and AI content as it stands. And I'm even running some of these tests myself. So, because I thought it was a bit meta and a bit funny, I created a blog post, a pillar page on life science SEO to see if I could win at life science SEO using AI. So ChatGPT wrote this post. I edited it for clarity to improve its flow and to add some additional content. But it took 2 hours instead of 20. It went live in the middle bar here, which is in July last year. And you can see for a lot of the relevant terms, life science SEO services, life science SEO agencies, we didn't even rank. Now we rank number one on a number of these, and this is in the US, which is a UK company, is one of the hardest places for us to rank. We're number one for all of these in the UK. It's kind of boring to show it, but that was just the experiment I ran. And I tracked these, and the minute that tanks, I'm like, but then run. But if we can do this, people are going to do this. And they're going to go after your customers, and they're going to create spammy content. So what we're going to do. And Doug Kessler, back in 2013, famous presentation at the rise of content marketing was the biggest threat to content marketing was content marketing. And the biggest threat to any channel that people are interested in is marketers, right? Because we just abuse it eventually. And my suggestion would be that there was a lot of crap, and there's going to be even more crap because now we can do it at scale. We're also seeing the rise of things like search generative experience. Put your hands up if you've done a Google search and then Google just answered it for you by churning out some AI responses. Yeah, we've all seen this. So it's pretty prevalent in North America. It's now being rolled out in Europe and the UK as well. And basically, nobody clicks on the blue links. They just get the answers straight there. So what does that mean for SEO? You've also got the rise of AI-first search engines like Perplexity and OpenAI are going to be bringing out their product. Basically, you do your search, the AI goes off and reads 20 web pages, comes back, gives you some answers and citations. But there's quite a bit of research showing most people don't even check the citations. They certainly don't click on them. So if these tools are going to be using our insights and our content to provide answers to people, but not necessarily driving any more traffic to our website, what do we do? So marketers, we have to think a bit differently. So what could we do? What's old is new. Everything I'm about to tell you is great marketing, but I just think we have to double down on it even more than ever before. So ultimately, we need to provide unique insights or provocative perspectives, right? Not the type of remix stuff that AI can create. So I'm talking research reports where we run surveys and we gather data and insights that are just not available on the web. Really high-value pieces of content where we talk with our SMEs about the latest findings from the conference they just went to and how they've synthesized your company's unique perspective on those. Again, just doesn't exist anywhere on the web. People are going to really crave that content because it's going to get harder and harder to find something genuinely interesting when people are churning out too much AI crap content everywhere. The other thing I think we need to continue to do is humanize our brands, right? People trust people. And if we start to not trust the content that we're reading because we're like, I don't know if this is full of hallucinations, errors, or if it's just been churned out without any real thought, they're going to want to be able to trust the content that they're getting. So I think that means continuing to work with the publishers in our industry like C&EN and others that have engaged audiences that trust the high quality content that they produce, but also as brands, putting our people front and center, leaning into things like webinars, podcasts, in-person events, because I think people are going to crave that. Because of the emerging capabilities that I showed you earlier with Claude being able to create front-end web tools with no development experience, as they get better, it will make it even easier to develop your own marketing freemium tools. So that might be like assessments, calculated quizzes, and templates and other things that are really helpful to your audience. And as I said earlier, you might be able to build things that you just wouldn't have built before. One of the real things I've been really excited about with joining Supreme Group this week is they've been working in the background building quite a sophisticated, currently freemium, although probably not freemium forever tool, where they have used very clever AI agent type processes to create a bot, in essence, that will analyze your website, your Google Ads performance, look at the benchmarks that Supreme has, and provide recommendations in a report to you automatically to help you conversion rate optimize your website and stuff. What was really cool about this, because everyone at Supreme, like BioStrata, most of them are ex-scientists, is they looked at and did a correlation analysis to see how good was the tool pitted against 5 real experts at Supreme. And as you can see, the most important number here is probably that one, which is that there was a 91% correlation between the human analysis of the data and recommendations and what the bot that they've created was able to produce. So how would you bring this to your own marketing in terms of reaching your audiences? This isn't out yet. We are looking for beta users. So if you're interested to maybe have a go at this when it goes live, come and see me in the break and see what we can do. So I think fundamentally, what we've looked at today is AI is having an impact. We're not even playing with half of the tools, but once people get hold of these, they're going to start churning out content at pace, and not all of it's going to be good. If we want to succeed in the world of content marketing, we need to provide those unique perspectives. We need to lean into humanizing our brands to get people trusting people. We need to invest in other ways of content marketing that are not ebooks and white papers, because I think they're just going to be too easy to produce at scale, and you're going to get lost in the mix. And where possible, you need to use your AI to scale these efforts. And what I really mean by that is just leverage the tools to scale your human-first content. So one of my favorite tools is Audio Pen. I walk the dog, I dictate to my phone, and then it pushes it into ChatGPT and writes it up beautifully. So I'm rambling along, and when I get home, I've got a fully formed email written by the AI. Super helpful. ChatGPT and Claude, they're only going to get better, so use them to help create social posts and other things like that. And also lean into things like the script for podcast and video editing. And so what we do on the podcast is it's human first. We do a podcast. We take the transcript, put it into script. We get a summary from Claude, which is an AI model like ChatGPT. And then we have Claude write blog posts, social posts, promo emailers, and the whole thing takes like 4 hours instead of 40. But it's human first, enabled and scaled by AI. And so there you have it. That's the current state of AI in life science marketing and the impact it will have on content marketing, and probably what we need to think about in the future. If you're interested in this and you want more good stuff, subscribe to Artificially Intelligent Marketing. And outside of that, thank you for your attention, and I will happily take any questions.
Great presentation. What do you feel as marketers is our responsibility to disclose what's been generated by AI, even if it started with a brainstorm or was fine-tuned and it was human and it's human plus AI? What are your thoughts on that?
The $1 million question. So this session is basically a watered down version of a half-day and full-day training workshop that we do for clients, where ethics of AI and how to use AI responsibly is really key. And ultimately, I think the AI companies are working to create watermarks for this, but it comes back to trust. On the bottom of our AI summaries of our podcast, we say at the bottom, this was created using AI, because you've got to be upfront about it. And I think people will start sniffing it out anyway. We're very good at that as humans. You know, when you get your semi-personalized LinkedIn messages and you get 25 of them a day and they all say a variation of the same thing, right? We know when we're being AI'd. So I definitely think we need to use it ethically and responsibly. The other thing is, it's still not clear what the fallout's going to be of how these were trained. In essence, the videos, the content that trained these tools was probably used without direct permission, because we didn't have the copyright laws necessary to cover this type of use case, and how that all plays out is going to be interesting as well. So there are definitely considerations. I think it's a great question, Dylan, and if you want more information, I'm happy to go into depth over lunch or something, but it's like an hour's conversation because it is quite complicated.
My question is, how do you feel the AI image generation is for really technical, like scientific topics? Like, we do a lot of web science and stuff for our, pharma biotech clients who are looking for stock images, and the stock images are horrible. Like, it's even not stock, whatever, person intellect coding doesn't look like a scientist fiber. So do you feel like we're at a place where the images are technical and accurate enough to be used in that kind of thing?
Another fantastic question. The short answer to that question is no, they suck. My favorite is when it tries to do a DNA helix and it's like, helix goes the wrong way round, or there's like 3 bits to the helix. So there's like, there is an alternate universe where we're all high on LSD and this is definitely what a DNA helix is like. I know. I beg of someone who has more time, money, and computing knowledge than me to fine-tune a model on a chunk of really interesting scientific images so that we can get a mid-journey for science. But it's a great question. They're not there yet. We're mostly using it where we are using it for creative concepting, brainstorming, to say to a client, this is what we think your creative campaign could look like. It's not finished, and a proper designer will work this up, but do you like the general idea? I think there are stock photo applications as well, but you don't own the copyright of anything an AI produces unless you change it significantly. So you can't just generate one, chuck it on your website, because basically anyone can use it, which isn't necessarily a problem, but it might be.
So I actually have some question about your data. So the first one is the very first graph you showed, you say that the content is better. How was that a boundary big?
That's a great question, where I would encourage you to read the original paper because I'm not a deep expert on how that was done. But if I remember correctly, they basically had a series of human evaluators who would look at the content blind, produced by people either using tools or not using tools, and then assessed in that way. I think blind assessment is absolutely critical to be able to try and do those types of assessments, but I do think they are forward problems probably as well.
And then the other graph you had where you were talking about productivity improvement in the people. Were those people trained before in the proper ways using those tools before you measure their productivity gains, or were these people just pulled off the street?
That is an awesome question. And the reason it's so awesome is if you're referring to the Boston Consulting Group, they didn't train anyone on how to use ChatGPT, they just gave them it. Now, the type of people who get into BCG are probably pretty bright, so it might not be the fairest test from that perspective, but yeah, they gave them no training, they just said figure it out. And they found a way to get those productivity gains. Guys, I've done this presentation lots of times. That is like the smartest, stroke hardest set of questions I've ever received. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate your thoughts.